Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Sorry about that, guys. Welcome back to all of you who have been here for any amount of this journey. And for those of you who are new, welcome to the channel. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. And that is the benefit of having right now a little cul-de-sac of influence, because I can have actual real-time one-on-one interaction with everybody, and I really value that, and that's really where I function and have the most impact in the work that I do. So thank you for being here, whoever you are and whenever you showed up. And as always, I like to remind people that if you value this content and you find it inspirational or helpful in any way, when you interact with the content by subscribing and liking and sharing and commenting, it actually does influence the AI algorithm and allows this to be spread to a potentially wider audience. So thank you for doing that in advance. And so I'm going to bring myself into the full picture here, and we're going to talk about astrology today. We're going to talk about the astrology for today and the weekend, and we have our full moon at the last degree of Pisces, well, 29 degrees of Pisces. That is going to be happening on Monday, on the 20th of September, 2021. It's going to be happening at roughly 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and further into the evening when it comes to our friends across the pond here. So, and we're going to talk about a little bit of what to expect from the week of the full moon, and really get into what the full moon means. Take a step back in our TARDIS here, back to the new moon, and revisit what that was all about, because with every new moon cycle, we're setting seeds of intention for personal growth, personal alchemy, right? The two poles within us, represented by the sun and the moon archetypally, come together in a conjunction, and we set intentions and we set seeds of intention. So with this last new moon, I actually literally set fall seeds into the ground, and they are now just sprouting. It's really exciting to watch the nature and the engine of nature unfold. So it's been gnarly. It has been gnarls Barkley out there. And honestly, if you're not at least bearing witness to it in some way, shape, or form, I don't know if not paying attention, if you are living in a snow globe, I'm not really sure, but it's gnarls out there, gnarls Barkley. And one day you might find the lyrics of that song really pertinent to this time. I remember when I lost my mind, right? And there's something so special about this place, leaving your emotions at an echo in so much space. It's been a very stressful 24 hours. I'm going to explain here just what's going on with me. Of course, incredible physical pain and discomfort over the last day or so, to the point where, and I've talked about this already, where it's rendered me completely inert, basically, that you just have to accept where it is and be in your body, be in the experience, and surrender to it, and at least know that this too shall pass, right? That we don't live forever in a stagnant experience, even when the experience is uncomfortable. And sometimes every second that ticks along when you are supremely uncomfortable feels like an eternity. So it really does test our resolve in that way. I have a family member who is battling. I don't even know if it's a battle anymore. Somebody in not my very direct immediate family, but still very close to us, who is in the hospital right now. She suffered a stroke. She's on a ventilator, and we're just kind of holding fast and praying and holding space for that situation as well. So it's been a stressful morning. That certainly has come up into my awareness. My partner has hurt himself at work, and so he's been home for the last 2 days, which always kind of has an impact on the energy in the house. Thankfully, it's not a negative energy. It's just another influence around the homestead. So it's been interesting, and it's been stressful, and it's been very potent. Now, one thing I do want to share before we get into the astrology. So we've been talking about how this CME has been on its way, and this is So I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to show you some real-time measurements and graphs of and you know what's going on in the magnetosphere, so you can see for yourself how you know, certain outlets of information will tell you one thing, and our experience, our real-time experience, and other potentially calibrated tools and equipment are picking up other things. So apparently, I don't remember if you remember that kid, the apparently kid. He's from this area. That's, if you don't know who I'm talking about, you literally can just type up apparently kid in YouTube and you will get that. Get that video of that kid. He's from Pennsylvania. He's from Northeast Pennsylvania. Anyway, I can't stop saying it now when I say the word apparently. I'm really trying to keep it light here because it's very dense. It's very dense, and it's gnarls out there. I'm telling you, it really is. And I know many of us are feeling it. We're interfacing with it. We may be experiencing it directly. And I am doing my best right now to keep it as light and not add to what is already a crushing density. And I'm going to show you how it's physically like that as well. But so the CME, there was a huge prominence, a filament that exploded just a couple of days ago on the sun that was facing to the planet. So we had the CME that was arriving, right? This coronal mass ejection, the movement of actual plasma. And according to spaceweather.com, NASA's, you know, the government's measurements, they were like, oh, it really didn't amount to anything. Well, my experience in my physical body certainly tells me differently, number one. Number two, if you look at the actual magnetosphere and the pressure of the magnetosphere, it's going to show you something very different, number two. And number three, if you look at different outlets of this type of information, suspicious observers, they will tell you that the NASA and the government equipment just conveniently stopped measuring around that time. And then so interesting that they would say, oh, it hardly did anything, when in fact, when you look at the actual data that they conveniently didn't have at that moment, you see that something very intense actually did happen. Now there's more solar weather on its way, right? We're watching more stuff on the Earth or the sun. There are more protrusions and filaments that are erupting. There's more CMEs on the way. And it's so, I mean, I can't stress enough, and many of us know this, that when it comes down to it, it's our own intuition that we have to trust, and we have to work on fine-tuning that. We have to work on hacking our own shadow so it's not manipulated, so that we think it's our intuition, but it's really, you know, the intrusion of other symbols and images and impressions that go right into our subconscious through social media, through mainstream media, through all kinds of different avenues that have been fine-tuned for a long time. So I want to show it to you. I want to show you what the magnetosphere is really doing, because I want to validate what people are going through, so that they are not shamed into thinking that they are just somehow adding to this negative sphere of reality, when in fact the density and the pressure, remember we've talked about this before, how does a star not collapse under its own density? It has the equivalent pressure as a result of its nuclear fusion, right? The particles of hydrogen moving so rapidly and quickly and fusing into helium that it creates a pressure that pushes out, and so that the density of the core of a star and the gravity that results from it, the star doesn't collapse in on itself. And that's what happens when a star dies, right? It runs out of fuel, which is hydrogen. Therefore, it does not provide the pressure to balance out the density of its own core, the mass in its own core, and eventually collapses in on itself, either into a white dwarf, neutron star, right, or a black hole. So I want to show you what is actually going on here. So I'm going to bring up and I will admit here, let's be realistic here, that we are looking at the Space Weather Prediction Center from it looks like University of Michigan, and it is from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So it is, related to the government, but This is really important to watch. So, and you'll see that UTC, right? On the East Coast, we're looking about 4 to 5 hours behind this time. So look at this. First, I want to make sure that you actually can see this on the screen, guys. So here we go. There we go. So what are we looking at? We're looking at density of the magnetosphere, right? The part of our atmosphere that is holding the electromagnetic field, okay? And look at this graph. And I promise we will get into the astrology, I know, but I want you to see this. When it gets to, as it gets closer and closer to this end, the more blue it gets, the more density, right? So particles per cubic centimeter. It gets denser and denser. Now look at this. Now we can watch this, and let's see, it starts at 1:38 UTC. So we're looking at what, roughly 8:30 a.m. And even in the course of the 11:11, even in the course of the last couple of hours since the moment I woke up and prepared for this and have been doing the work preparing for this broadcast, I have felt things start to release a little bit, and you're going to watch this in real time. Okay, so look at how it's surrounding here. It's so dense, right? The density surrounding, and it was even more so last night. Now it's starting to dissipate. It's getting less dense, less dense. It's still got this density that's kind of, there it comes again, right? It's coming back, and then it's evening out. It's less dense as we get to the current time period, right? And there. Right. And when I got up and put this graph up, even though for, the hours, early morning hours, it was incredibly dense. The magnetosphere was very dense. Now look at this. This is what we're also going to be looking, the pressure. So the closer it gets to the red, the more pressure. Look at this pressure surrounding us. The pressure in order to combat or balance out the density that we saw as well. Look at how much pressure is around us this morning. And as it goes on, it starts to release a little bit, right? But not really. It's surrounding us still right here. And you don't see a ton of density coming in either. So that's very interesting to me as well. It's just in response to something, right? There's definitely in response to something. So the pressure is still surrounding us, but it has dissipated just and gotten smaller. And you can see how that correlates to the density right here. Look at that. Oh my gosh. And then as it gets later in the morning, it's starting to let go just a little bit. Not until later though, right? Look at that. It's still, look at that. There it is. There's the incoming density of the solar weather as well. Man, that is intense. Okay, so I'm going to let that go for a minute and pop back. So I just want to show you, right? Show you in real time here that there is something impacting us. And when the magnetosphere gets dense, right, we are going to respond to it, just like we are all surrounded by a magnetic field as well from our own internal electrical systems, right? Our heart is an electrical pump. Our nervous system functions on electrical signals. And so anything that is electrical is going to emit electromagnetic frequency. And so we also have that surrounding us. That is our aura, right? That is our Merkaba. It's our energy field. And so we are directly linked to the planet. This is why I teach my clients and with my energy work clients specifically too, where we work on reinforcing those areas that allow for a stronger and much more rooted connection to the planetary grid energetically through that Earth Star chakra and through the root chakra specifically. And there are certain frequencies that you can use that will allow that to happen. Anything under 300, anything under 400 hertz is going to resonate at those very deep frequencies and help tonify and strengthen and clear out any debris from those lower chakras. When you can connect directly to the planet's grid, this is what's going to allow you to be rooted and stable, just like a tree or a plant would be rooted and stable in their own, into the soil, and can handle the fluctuations of the environment. And when we're talking about the environment of us, we're talking about electromagnetic fluctuations, right? And so I really want to show it to you in real time so that you can see that something is actually happening, that there is incredible density, and that there is the corresponding pressure that the magnetosphere emits in order to keep us from being completely crushed by it. And you can feel that in terms of the way that it then, that frequency starts to attract in behaviors and actions and emotional responses and reactions that will lead to our thought processes as well. So that's something that you can utilize as well to kind of make sense of what's going on. And it's really gnarly out there. And did you take the advice? That's what I want to know. Giving yourself time to have respite, giving yourself to have rest, recuperate, gather, mobilize your internal resources, because we are going to, we're getting slammed right now. That is for sure. And we want to make sure that we are taking good care of ourselves. And when we get these solar weather, right, especially when there's not much of a buffer. I mean, the Schumann resonance is certainly doing its little like blips up to like maybe 20 hertz at the most, but it's still very, very calm and basic in terms of the emission, right? The frequency of the electromagnetic field, right? And so when that's happening, it's like we are, it's like the earth is very calm in those moments, right? She is very calm, and she's allowing in this influx of density, and there is pressure to counteract that. But when we get solar information, we are getting information, right? We're getting codes that are coming in, and sometimes it's really, really uncomfortable. And along with that is whatever's going on. There are a lot of people getting sick. There are a lot of people that are dying. There are a lot of people having serious, and we talked about this yesterday, very serious medical issues, accidents, stuff going on in their physical body, stuff going on in their emotional realm as well. It's heightening. So our moon in Aquarius right now is giving us this opportunity to tap into the energy that moves through the collective, a collective of individual sovereign people. All of those node points connect us all together into a grid, and we connect to the grid of the planet, natural energy, right? I mean, the dark side of Aquarius is that AI hive mind. We want to connect into the natural grid and be nodes of the natural grid. And when we can do that through our emotions, through our feelings, through our intuition, we actually can hold an incredible amount of energy that is necessary for burning off and, clearing out the debris of what is at a lower density and refuses to be upgraded for whatever reason, right? And so it's usually holding on to all kinds of stuff, right? Shame and guilt and darkness, however you want to conceptualize it. So let's start looking at the astrology so we can see, how the new moon is. The new moon is about culmination, and we're going to talk about oh God, yeah, sorry, I just popped over to the chat and somebody was talking about the apparently kid. There was a galactic war going on, like my guides and angels were gone away from me, but I felt there was a fight. Yes, I am right with you on that. And it was like, it felt to me like, hey, we're here, but there's a larger process that's going on, Emily, that seemed like that there was something that needed more of the attention than we needed at that moment, which is why I was like, take a step back, take a break, mobilize your internal resources, so when it's time to rejoin the fray here, that we have everything that we need. And I think it's been, like I said, very uncomfortable and very painful physically and emotionally as well. So thank you for that comment. And I'm really stoked that you know exactly who that kid is, because I can't I can't stop thinking about it. Apparently I should post it on my social media, the interview where he was released to the world, right? Okay, I'm gonna pop back to the video now. All right, so let me move here to our actual chart for today. Here we go. So today is the 17th, and we are looking at like I said, our moon. Nope, that's not it. There we go. We're looking at our moon in Aquarius today, And it's going to be, and what else is happening today? Oh yes, Venus and our friend Saturn. Ooh, I have some things to talk about with that, that's for sure. Okay, where am I? OBS, I know that you're here. No. There we go, yay. All right, you'd think I would figure this out by now, but I am a human. I might be a walk-in, but I'm still a human. And that is part of this process, is being a human. All right, friends, here we go. We have that's not it. Here's our current transits. Here is the 17th of September. We're going to go through the weekend with a fine-tooth comb here, and then we'll talk about the full moon, and then I will share with you some of the major transits happening for the following week. And something to keep in mind is next week is our spring equinox, so I do want to bring out more of a quarterly astrology as well, talking about, talking about the next new moon, talking about eclipse season, talking about all of these planets going retro or direct, talking about January 2022. Wow. Just wow. That's all I can say. Bob. Wow. If you're into Twin Peaks, my God. If anything prepared us for this time, it was definitely Twin Peaks. Okay. So I'm going to get my notes up here, my friends. All right, so I will tell you, yesterday, didn't I say that that Sun trine Pluto is a portal? It was a portal calling people home. And as much as I am on an emotional level very much disturbed and sad and not trying to grieve before it's time, I do know deeply and with a sense of deep knowing and trust that that portal opened to call people home, right? To call people home into their higher self, into their next phase of evolution. And so if you are in a situation where you're losing somebody, you've lost somebody, even at the hands of a corrupt system, and you know that it was unfair, or that it was intentional for a nefarious purpose. And that has been happening in many situations I've seen. You know, one thing to bring comfort and that you can pray about is that people were being called home, right? We talked about that flag at half mast, right? It is a recognition of somebody's service to the community. And so that portal opening with Pluto involved with that sun was an opportunity for people to be released and to go home, right? And so that's one way that and not even like a way, it's not a bypass, this is a deep knowing. And so I knew that something was going to come, and I kind of suspected that I would see it in my personal life, considering the fact that it was sitting right on my North Node in my 8th house. So the house of death and rebirth, and that deep place beyond that, very much coming out in terms of my soul's journey. So, all right, guys, here we go. Now, we're going to start here. We're going to back up a little bit, and we're going to start at the moon in a square to Venus, because we want to talk about this whole Venus, and the moon will be conjunct Saturn, will square Venus, and then Venus and Saturn will square each other, right? Venus in Scorpio. Number 1, Draco activation, okay? Venus at 7 to 8 degrees Scorpio. Actually, Venus from 6 to 8 degrees Scorpio. You're going to find yourself with a Draco activation. And Venus is at her detriment in Scorpio. She is at her least powerful. She is, the worst of her comes out in this position. And it's because Venus, being in home territory in Taurus, wants to be sensitive to the material world and have a direct connection to the material world and be satisfied by that, to bring the object of her desire to her in order to satisfy her comfort and security, right? And this comes through our relationships, things that are very palpable to us in the material world, our resources, our relationships, the projects that we are working on that have value to us. When she is in Scorpio, it is a hard place for her to be, because she has to sink to the bottom of the feeling of the power dynamics that exist when we come into communion. For better or for worse, we create something together. And if we are unconscious to what we are creating in a collective sense, we're still responsible for it. And in fact, this is what happens by the time you get to Capricorn, because they become a solidified reality based on the symbolic power of Scorpio in general. So Venus is at her detriment here, but there is a moment of clarity, and the fact that this is a Draco activation, and also my natal Venus is at this degree, so I can speak. I feel like I can speak with some, I don't want to say authority, but just really deep knowing about this particular location. Because of my natal positioning of it here. This is about being able to have the still waters, right? The still waters that allow the full moon to reflect off of them without any disturbances. And the thing about the Draco that we've talked endlessly about is the fact that what it represents is the potential for the powerful, potent serpent energy that is represented by the Kundalini being misused, being mishandled by those who are acting out of self-preservation and exploitation, right? When you cannot, when your vessel and you utilize your Kundalini energy for the sake of self-preservation, for the sake of disempowering or overpowering others, right? When it comes down to only your reptilian brain or your limbic system in operation, without a higher mind in order to hold that energy, you find yourself with the standard lizard or reptilian frequency that is often thrown around. Now, not all Draco are bad. In fact, there are many that have quarantined themselves and gave of themselves and hid their potential all over this planet in order to keep it from being misused and keep it from being exploited. So there's something to consider about that, how powerful and potent this particular starseed resonance is. And I'm gonna make a specific video about this, but I just want to point out something here that came, and I've talked about this before, but if you really want to understand the starseed mission in popular culture, just look at Harry Potter. It's really, really spelled out, right? That the RH negative are us, right? The starseeds are the people that have the RH negative, because that is the genetic marker that allows the starseeds to connect to their original galactic origins, right? So, and this is coming from the Starseed Hotline. These are the OG people that developed the protocol for the readings that I use, and they are also, have been at this for a really long time. The RH negative, whatever, galactic origins, a hybrid, hybridization that has happened, regardless, if you think about Harry Potter, and I promise I'll get back to the astrology, but you have to understand this to understand why this particular aspect right now is incredibly potent. This square from Venus to Saturn, the fact that the moon is directly involved in its conjunction with Saturn and Venus, and this degree and what it represents, and the ability to not allow yourself to be triggered into self-preservation or power plays in Scorpio, especially because when you can do that, wow, your access to your own subconscious, especially we're talking about the moon, your access to the deeper truths of what we can create together and the power of symbolism is very, very strong. And even though Venus does not like to be in Scorpio, this particular degree is a moment where if she can hold it together and not be so flustered or impacted by the depth of feeling, right? If she doesn't sink in the swamp herself because of the sensitivity to what she is interacting with at these very deep levels, there is an incredible potential here. Okay, so the Harry Potter story, right? The entire narrative is all about the starseed mission, right? The starseed mission. So all of the wizards and witches that are somehow picked out, right? How do they know? It's the RH okay? They go to Hogwarts, they go to all of the different schools around, and guess what? The Draco, I mean, my God, Draco Malfoy, come on, guys. The Slytherin house is an essential part of the dynamic. You don't separate this part from the rest of the signatures, right? Now, when it comes to genetics, right? Hermione Granger, perfect example of the fact that the Rh negative can still be dormant in you, even though you express as Rh positive, or your parents are Rh positive because they have a dormant allele of the Rh negative in their bloodline. And you happen to have two parents where magically, randomly, maybe not randomly, those two Rh negative alleles that may be dormant in them come together and are expressed in your blood type as an Rh negative. That's how you get Hermione Granger. But she's a mudblood, right? She's a hybrid. She doesn't have the pure blood in her, does she? And you can see what happened with that whole obsession with the pure blood, especially because Voldemort also was a technical mudblood, and he was taken over by the negative aspect of the Draco or the Slytherin. Remember, Harry Potter could speak Parseltongue, right? He had the Draco aspect in him from Voldemort, of course, but you could probably argue that it was even deeper than that. You want to understand the Starseed mission? Read Harry Potter. There's a reason that there's a very specific reason why the mainstream Christian institutions wanted people to stay away from this, right? Because they don't want people to understand what is at the root of our genetic origins. This doesn't mean that the Rh negative people are more special. That is the trap that the New World Order, the Aryan supremacy, whatever, that's the trap they fell into. They thought that they were better and they wanted to keep their bloodlines pure. You see how it turned out in Harry Potter, right? They're psychos. They're psychos and they want to destroy everybody that's not them. Anyway, I'm going to bring it back around, okay? So that you, hi Seth. Always with Schrodinger's cat. So this is why this is important though, right? So here is this Draco activation with Venus. If we can keep our sensitivity on lockdown, right? If we don't get ruffled, if we don't get pushed around by the ripple, if we can keep that quiet inspiration, that stillness in our emotions, we're going to see something very deeply within ourselves, within our material world, our relationships, what's our resources, very palpable, and the power of that, right? Now, the square, number one. You see how the moon and Saturn are together, so it's really amplifying it emotionally with us, with Saturn, right? Saturn retrograde that's in Aquarius, this degree that represents these wax figures that are just like they're mental archetypes of where we're going. But remember, they're wax figures. They're not real. They're just showing you the potential of where we could go, and they are given some form. Now, Saturn is that form. It's crystallization. It's structure, it's time, it's space, it's the living rock. It is the wall of karma, right? And it's the responsibility that we all hold, right? Saturn in the chart is your responsibility and your karmic responsibility in this lifetime, right? So in a transiting way, you see how this is reinforcing and giving form and structure to these mental archetypes of where we could go. And the sun or the moon making this connection here is also making it a very accessible to our subconscious, or accessible from our subconscious, from our dreams, from our intuitive nature meeting together. Now remember, they're just wax figures. They're not us, right? They are just showing us where we could go. And they are also, it's really important to realize who made those, right? Are they going to melt under heat? Oh, that's something to think about. And remember, Saturn is retrograde, right? This is all something that's happening within us right now, something that we are reviewing, that we're looking into, this skeleton or the scaffolding within us that is forming, that is showing us where we could go. And with the moon there, now we're emotionally attaching to it, right? And the square is the potential here is incredible, right? If we can keep ourselves at a baseline, if we can keep the waters of our emotions and our feelings still, and allow inspiration, and allow that quiet. Remember, we talked about this, the quiet, going into the stillness, allowing ourselves to be still and passive and receptive. In fact, that is the new moon. What we talked about, receiving something from that lineage or tradition or the heritage that we are unfolding as ourselves, right? The ego death that allows for the fruit to grow and be sacrificed in order to release the seed, right? That is Virgo. When we set intention at the beginning of this cycle on the new moon, on the day that Mercury moved into its retrograde shadow, right? It's the same degree that Mercury is going to retrograde back to in October. If we can see, we've allowed ourselves to be open to receive something, to see that we are on the right path, that our courage and our determination and our discipline and our meticulousness along this pathway within ourselves is going to yield something that will say, yes, this is exactly where you are meant to be. You are fulfilling this role. If we can allow ourselves to stay stable and still and allow ourselves to be inspired in a very material way, Venus and our sensitivity, we can really lean into the square here. These are fixed squares, right? Scorpio's fixed water. Aquarius is fixed air, right? There's not a lot of mutability. There's not a lot of motion either. It's just anchored in that element. So when they meet each other in these cross purposes, it's much more, it's less likely that they're going to go shooting off into other directions because of their momentum. They're mostly going to be it's going to be like hitting a brick wall with a brick wall in water and air in that moment. And so the thing is that the sun or the moon, I keep wanting to say the sun, the moon in this position is with Saturn though. So it's going to give, it's giving a lot more structure and form and crystallization to our emotions, right? To our subconscious. And we want to identify ourselves with these forms that aren't actually real. They're just representations. And I think if we can allow ourselves to not get pulled into the fray of everything emotionally, which I've been talking about all week, we can really be inspired in a way that we have not, I think, realized how much our energy is being siphoned and manipulated in order to potentially create and give energy to these wax figures, to animate them in some ways. So we have to be mindful of this. And this, a Venus-Saturn square in and of itself is a very difficult thing to sit with, right? Because about our sensitivity and wanting comfort and security and love and beauty and harmony, meeting the brick wall of Saturn in that square, just in general. And then to have all of these other aspects, the moon involved here, the fact that Venus is at her detriment, it's a Draco activation, we are really going to be pushed. And really, we're going to be pushed up against something. And it's going to, how we are able to be the hub in this turning wheel is going to make a big difference about how, what it is that we actually give our energy to. So in this moment here, this was overnight. Look, right here, 1:20 a.m. So this is all happening overnight, late last night, in possibly in our dream state, especially with the moon involved and Scorpio, the subconscious. It's really accessible in our dream state. And of course, when we talk about Scorpio, Pluto is also involved. And with that square, that trine that we just had, it was just past it when this square became pretty much right here exact, right? Here's still the sun in a trine with Pluto. So it's important that we don't get pulled off course because of this powerful, raw energy that Pluto represents that is, destruction and death as a precursor to metamorphosis. And sometimes, it's not easy to hold, but it also, we could easily get pulled off course when self-preservation starts to kick in and we want to, we're acting from that place. And that is the dark side of the Draco, okay? So there's that's my Starseed Draco rant. I don't know if it was a rant, maybe a teaching. So we're gonna move on here now that we've done that. That whole thing was like a whole big piece. Now we move on throughout the day, and the next stop here is that the moon is going to be in a sextile with Chiron retrograde, right? And this is like a healing opportunity, of course, with Chiron involved. And any kind of sextile is a 60-degree angle that allows for an investment, right? We invest we invest ourselves into that harmony, and we get something more out of it. So the moon at this point in this sextile to Chiron, it's important that with Aquarius, we realize that everybody's equal in the eyes of God or source, but we're all kind of on a different staircase up the way, right? The staircase to heaven, for instance, right? And we're all kind of on our own step, because that's exactly where we're meant to be. That's exactly where we are in our evolution. We are all individual sovereign nodes on this collective thing, this collective geometric pattern of life, right, that is holding all this energy. But we have to realize that we're on different levels, and it doesn't make us less equal. It's just a natural progression of the states of consciousness. And many of us can attest to this process over the last 2 years, right? How we have all evolved so quickly from certain perspectives, and then all of a sudden we see it more and more and more as we kind of climb up this ladder. So there's a necessity of recognizing the differences in the types and the levels of development that everybody is on, right? This is part of accepting a natural, powerful collective of humans, is that this is it's a natural progression, and we don't want everybody to be on the same step, right? Because that is not individual sovereign nodes in a beautiful geometric pattern. That is the hive mind of the Borg, right? Where you've lost all your individuality and your only goal is to fulfill the hive. The sextile is when we invest this energy in our emotions, in our feelings, in a drive or an urge, right? With the moon, how we feel. We can invest this into where Chiron is and where it has been, which is this repolarization within each of us when it comes to our ideal concept of cosmic or natural law, and how that inevitably separates itself within us between human law, right? Our social laws, our cultural laws. Because when you look at the ideal, it's kind of like a flying V. So when you get to the apex, and then you realize that it kind of shoots off and separates itself. And that has been triggering so many people into the victim savior narrative over and over, and the wounded healer, right? That Chiron represents. And so we can really, really invest this moment here into Chiron and let go of these narratives. Not to say that people aren't being victimized. We have to realize that actual things on the ground are happening to people, and not, again, put ourselves in a snow globe, but within each of us, right? And because Chiron in Aries is the subjective experience of us as us, like an I am that I am. So when we can invest this and show everybody's on their own level, including us, right? Be easy on yourself too. Chiron is retrograde. Like, we really are addressing a lot of these dynamics within ourselves right now. So just recognize that we're all exactly where we need to be, and we're all in a natural progression. And when we can realize that, then we don't have to give in to the wounding and the shame and guilt that we are feeling as a result of a very natural process of repolarization, when we acknowledge that there is some sort of symbolic representation of natural law out there, and how humanity has split off from that in some ways. Something else that's really important to recognize today, and I'll flip over to this chart for just a second. I want to make sure you can see it. Let's see. Yes. Here we go. This is not today. Sorry, guys. But I'm going to show you anyway, because you can see it. So just pretend here that today, Black Moon Lilith is in a conjunction with Rahu, okay? Black moon Lilith, the dark feminine, right? The deeper dark feminine, darker than our moon, right? The moon is us, how we feel, our subconscious. Lilith is something much deeper, much deeper than that. And meeting Rahu, right? Our soul's trajectory, right? The head of the dragon. Be careful with this. We have to be very masterful about that dark feminine within us, right? She is the angry activist, fighting for the rights of all nature. But we have to make sure that we are mastering that. We are aware of it. It's not unconscious, because when it's unconscious, that's where the dark essence really takes over, and it can be very damaging and toxic, right? Our toxicity of our trauma comes to the surface rather than us using that power for actual constructive change, right? It's not that it can't be used. It's just that we have to be careful that we're not unconscious to it. So when it's meeting Rahu, right, which can kind of obsessively pull us towards this area, this degree again is about reaching beyond established form, right? Revolution. You can feel this happening. You can see it happening. We're all participating in it. You can feel it. And now Black Moon Lilith is meeting Rahu and infusing that movement towards that goal, or that towards that area of revolutionary action. It's now infusing it with all of this very deep yearning, this deep connection to the feminine, the sacred feminine. This has got a Kali energy wrapped up in it, and it's really strong. So again, there is so much to be said for this right now that, again, we have to make sure that our Draco aspects, especially if you're a Draco starseed, right, you do not want it to take over out of a self-preservation. It has to come from this deep connection that is not even palpable through our conscious mind, of a connection to the feminine, to the planet, to the space, right? And that, like I said, Kali energy, meeting and infusing in the head of the dragon, right? All of a sudden that he becomes even more intense. There's more of a drive to get there, and it's revolution. So be aware of that as well. Feel it in you. Don't suppress it. But you also don't want it to get out of hand either, because that's when the toxicity of our trauma starts to surface, and we cannot allow that to be what is driving the ship right now. And it's such a huge potential today and over the weekend. Because once we get to that full moon, we want to make sure that we know exactly what our pathway is when the light goes through that prism and differentiates into all these different pathways, okay? Again, it's all the same thing. The light goes through the prism and then shows you that there are actually multiple frequencies of light that are different colors, right? That's what the different colors represent, different frequencies and wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. Okay, let's see what else we have. And then the moon comes and squares Uranus as well today, right? So another fixed square. And remember, this is almost a mutual reception, almost, right? Because the moon is in the home territory of Uranus, and Uranus is in the territory that the moon is exalted in, right? It's not its home, but it's close. It's exalted in Taurus. So this square is providing a really useful, like, not camaraderie. It's like teamwork, right? You know, we can switch off and really enhance and impact each other, right? Each side has something that the other recognizes, and we're like handing them off, right? And be like, oh yeah, I have this, and oh, you have this, and let's bring it together, especially in a square, because they're going to meet in a fixed square. So again, those brick walls are going to hit each other, but in that moment, you're going to be like, oh, I see something in that wall that I recognize, and vice versa. And so we're talking about our emotions, right? Our feelings and our internal landscape with the moon, again, at 15 degrees Aquarius. And this is going to be a big test, right? Because that degree of Aquarius is about two lovebirds sitting happily on a fence, right? Meeting Uranus at 15 degrees Taurus, which is like the guy that has put on his hat and is braving the storm, okay? in a very material way. But since it's Uranus retrograde, chances are it's going to be in the body, right? People having physical issues, material crisis, illness, injury, all of those things, with retrograde specifically. It doesn't have to be, but it seems like it's been expressing itself that way. So the square, it's wow, what a challenge. Can we keep our emotional, subconscious, intuitive, feeling based self? Can we see how we can receive the blessing bestowed upon our own achievement in that moment, because it's going to test us, right? But again, these two things are able to be familiar with each other. The moon and Uranus are each in the other's territory in some ways. And so there's something to be said for this, right? Whereas the moon in Aquarius, right, are we able to accept the blessings bestowed upon our own achievements on a spiritual path in the face of such a radical reorientation of our material world that really is challenging us. This is the end of today in terms of the transits, and so it's not even that far into today. It's going to be this afternoon or late morning on the West Coast, and so you see here, oh yeah, we're going to move into this. We're definitely going to move into this quincunx here in a second. So this is today, and I know that it's gnarly, and there's certainly a lot of challenge right now, right? And this is about not being disturbed emotionally and in our feelings, right? Do not allow your emotions to be siphoned off for somebody else's benefit. And be able to stand in, your own power, and to know that even with everything that is, remember, Uranus it's all about transformation, right? It is the trigger of transformation, crisis after crisis after crisis, trigger of transformation. When you have Uranus in your second house natally, that's exactly what's happening, is and you are individuating yourself from where you came from in order to evolve, right? In order to wake up. And that's what Uranus really allows for, is a collective awakening pattern. And we are all being called to task in order to do this. And the moon in this moment here, for as uncomfortable as this is going to be, the moon in this moment is going to allow us to connect in to what we have gained, what our blessings are, how far we've come on this pathway of being a node in this beautiful geometric pattern that we know as life unfolding, nature unfolding, not the AI transhumanist Aquarian agenda, although that is there. We can't deny that it's still there. They're trying really hard. And self-preservation and that limbic system in your reptilian brain is like the easiest way to tap into you, into all of us. So it's as uncomfortable as this is, it is an opportunity, big time opportunity. So see it for what it is, right? So when we move on here, let me see here. When we move on here to the 7th or the 18th, tomorrow is Saturday, right? We are going to find ourselves with our moon certainly going to be moving into Pisces by the end of today. So let's see here. Number one. There we go. Number one, we have our moon in Aquarius, and we specifically are going to have Mercury in conjunction, not yet. Mercury is going to be in a quincunx to Neptune, right? So in our mental sphere, right? Mercury being our communication on our mind, right? How our individual minds work, how our nervous system works, how we conceptualize and interface with reality, what our ideas are, right? The thoughts that we have. What we're really thinking about, it seems to me, and where our thoughts are really drawn is to really give, for those who have really tapped into the infinite, there is a strong desire to want to provide that to those who thirst for it, right? It's like the, little child giving birds a drink of water, right? we want innocently in some ways. We want to give people, we want to red pill them, right? We want to give them the water is life, right? Emotion and spirit and access to it. We want to give it to them. We want to provide it to them because we ourselves have touched that space already. And Libra, again, is perfect form of balance, right? We can find the balance if we give to those who don't have, right? When they have it, that's the idea. Then everything balances out. The quincunx is that inconjunct, right? That opportunity to transmute an energy that does not fit together, which is Moses coming down from the mountain and being like, this is what it is, right? And Neptune is retrograde. And so it is, the fog is cleared away. We see things for what it is. We feel it for what it is. You have to literally have your eyes closed at this point not to see what is happening. But it also dissolves, Neptune especially dissolves everything away around it so that it is only that. And it depends on who or what, it depends on which mandate's coming down from the mountain that you're going to apply to your everyday life. And with Neptune retrograde, this is certainly something that we are experiencing on an internal level, something that we are giving our personal and individual attention to in some ways, and it's not as foggy, right? It's actually very clear right now, even though it's still... there's still an attempt to bring people into a specific narrative, right? And so the quincunx here is that we want to give others what we feel they are thirsting for. And in our minds, in our thoughts, in our speech, right? In our communication, through ideas, through the application of our knowledge of what it means to be balanced and just and fair. What doesn't fit here is that it doesn't come from the application of knowledge. Pisces is about the transcendental experience, something beyond just our application of knowledge. And so the opportunity in this quincunx is about, how do we alchemize this? How do we transmute this energy? Because we don't want to let go of this entirely with Mercury. We want to find a way that we can square the circle within. The circle is our infinite self. The square is the material reality around it. How do we fit that round peg into that square hole? That's what this inconjunct represents. So how do we do that? Well, I mean, we choose the mandate coming down from the mountain. How do we communicate what is something that is really so fluid and imperceptible through thoughts and through ideas and speech, right? Because Pisces is about inspiration. How do we take that inspiration and apply it to everyday life? And also, how do we communicate it to those who haven't heard it yet? Well, I mean, that's going to be different for everyone, but it's not going to come just from applying our knowledge to what is fair and just and balanced through our communication. It's not going to just be that. There's going to be some adjustment we have to make between these two aspects because it's just not enough to just speak it or to give the ideas or to apply our knowledge. We actually have to be inspired by something beyond us, right? Something transcendental, something cosmic. It has to literally come down from the mountain from somebody who is, ordained to receive that message. And then we find a way to transmute these two things together. That's going to be incredible. And at the same time, the moon comes into... go back a little bit. The moon will be in a, there you see right here, the moon will also be in a trine to Mercury at the very same time. So trine in Aquarius, and this is a very interesting degree. It's like for those who have been awake to things for a really long time, there is some measure of like warm, comfortable support that is put there so that you can kind of like play around and be comfortable. It's like a little rug on a nursery floor, right? To play. And so that aspect is going to find itself very much supporting where Mercury is, that trine, that air trine. And so as we feel that we are supported, if we feel that there is something underneath us that is warm and comfortable and allows us to kind of just play with these ideas, I think that's really going to give us what we need to make the most of this inconjunct at that point. So from there, the moon comes, like I just showed you, the moon comes into a conjunction with Jupiter retrograde. And this is a moment here where we overcome our passions in order to teach from a place of deep wisdom. And Jupiter is a teacher in a lot of ways, right? Jupiter is the defender of our collective values. It is advocacy. It is optimism and expansion. But it has this professor kind of nature, because Sagittarius is the dissertation. Sagittarius is true understanding based on the bringing together and catalyzing the opposition points of Gemini, right? It is the higher mind. And so Jupiter is the communicator of the higher mind, is the expanding the higher mind, and provides the space in some ways and the resources in order to come to that understanding. And so it's, Jupiter's been expanding this space within us in order to get to and advocating it for it as well, defending it, advocating for it, is a benefactor, right? Of this really incredible wisdom that only can come through experiencing things and coming out the other side. So the moon and Jupiter comes, and there's an expansion of our intuition and our feelings when it comes to this moment here. And so again, when we're getting caught up in the emotional turmoil of all of this stuff, we can't teach deep wisdom from that place. And there are people that aren't there yet. Remember, go back to the day before with the moon in Aquarius, where it is in a sextile to Chiron, right? That everybody's on their own step, including us, right? Be easy on yourself. Be compassionate towards yourself and others. Accept the fact that everybody's exactly where they need to be, and they're in different progressive states on their own journey to their own awakening, whatever that means for them. And so the only way to teach from this, overcome it, you have to overcome it, overcome your passions. Remember, that is Leo to a T. Leo is the opposite of Aquarius. So it's when the Kundalini is released and you have your experience of awakening through that process that you're then able to teach that from that place of having to go through all of the shit that it was involved, right? Because as much as we want to be passionate, there's always that possibility that we burn something down in the process. So Saturday is when we get this opportunity to really expand upon our emotional capacity to teach from a place of deep wisdom, even if it's just ourselves. Even to receive that teaching is just as valid and as important. The moon will quincunx the sun, right? There's another quincunx, and you can see it right here, as it is. We are really testing the battery, right? We're applying skill. We're applying this with the moon, right? This moment where we're applying natural law and knowledge of natural law to see if the battery is able to even hold a charge, right? And the quincunx here is that on the one hand, the moon, we're feeling around, can we actually hold this energy? Do we have the right amount of moisture in the battery? Let me apply my knowledge and make sure that that's the case. Well, while that's happening, the sun in Virgo is okay, well, it's time to step out now and actually start participating in this planetary evolution. So that quincunx, again, we're going to have to figure out how to emotionally at the same time do that testing within ourselves and to not let go of the fact that we must step out and start participating now, right? We start giving of ourselves in that Virgo way. And then the moon comes around and trines asteroid Vesta, which you're not going to see on this chart necessarily, but is in let's see here, is in 29 degrees of Libra, so 29 degrees of Aquarius. Remember, this was the last full moon, 29 degrees of Aquarius, a butterfly emerging from the chrysalis is going to be in a trine to Vesta in the very last degree of Libra, which is really about our ability to, let's see here. Hold on one second, guys. I'm so sorry. I want to make sure I have the right verbiage for this, okay? Oh yes, a deep sense of participation in and a commitment to social life, right? Which brings us all truth, right? Our effort to reach for knowledge that's transferable from generation to generation. It's not just us. It's something that we can then apply and transmit to others. And Vesta, Vesta is the patron goddess of the hearth flame, the flame within us that sustains us, the community. And so there's a deep sense of participation here. And when we can really connect to that and connect to it as a sustainable force within us, a sustainable fire within us, then again, it's going to find a lot of support with our personal emergence, right? This metamorphosis moment of the moon in Aquarius. Very, very powerful. I mean, I feel like things are going to really pick up over the weekend, again, it's going to be very interesting and powerful, but I feel like the density is going to start lifting as we start to each embody our own role within the node, being the node and harnessing the collective power when each of us is our own sovereign being in this node, right? So where are we at here? Here's the 18th. So then the moon moves into Pisces at this point, right? And this is going to be the sign where we have our full moon, which is at the 29 degrees of Pisces, and that happens on Monday. So in the meantime, we see here that the moon then comes into a quincunx with Mars in Libra, and 3 degrees of Libra, the dawn of a new day revealed, right? We realize that we can play our actual true role, our dharma, right? And it's always the ever-present possibility of beginning again, right? On a new foundation of values. It's never too late for each of us as individuals to step forward into our dharma. It's never too late, right? Now, there are certain things that are on a trajectory that we're not changing, right? The timeline that Earth is on, there's nothing that we're going to do that's going to change that ultimate goal or that trajectory, right? It's been made pretty clear, to me at least, that we are on our way to the event horizon. And in fact, we are within that sphere of the event horizon. There's no going back now. So there's no changing the ultimate endpoint here. That's the whole point of Project Looking Glass, that nothing can stop what is coming, is that there's no variable that could enter into the quantum computer that showed that there was any other outcome here. So we're there now, right? And it's unfolding. What we can do is based on individual choice, right? We can play our true role or dharma and step into it. And this is where Mars is. So it gives us the ambition and the drive and the courage and the thrusting forward, the penetrating out into the world, right? This is the seed point. Now, what's interesting here is this quincunx. You can see all these quincunxes all over the place, right? All of these opportunities for adjustment. The moon at 3 degrees Pisces is where this is going to be really important to connect to, because what we will each individually on a subconscious level in our dreams are going to connect back to Atlantis, right? We're going to connect back to what has already happened. And specifically what we're going to connect to is the fact that there are records of what has happened within the morphogenetic field, within the Akash, that we are going to connect to very personally and very directly. And there's no getting around that. And so, again, we don't want to, there's always the opportunity for a new cycle. Like, it's always new. Like, the seed is not a clone. The seed is its own unique genetic configuration, just like a person, right? When you clone a person, it's exactly the same genetic code. When two people come together and create a child, their chromosomes split apart and it comes back together in its own unique configuration, right? And that's where Mars in Libra really represents at 3 degrees, is coming back and really fulfilling your unique role in this whole process. We don't want to recreate what happened with Atlantis. Never again, right? Hashtag never again. But we do want to connect into the resonance and at least the records, the Akashic records of what that represented, so that we don't repeat it and that we do something new and that we have the courage to do something new. That's very important. And then from there, the moon comes to square the nodes. So there'll be a T-square with the nodes, right? Though, because the nodes are always in opposition to each other. So there would be your opposition. And then here's the moon. So just imagine that other square is right up here. And when we have a T-square, and where's 5 degrees Pisces? This is the value of giving a spiritual meaning to everything that you do, which is going to be kind of difficult in the moment because we are on a trajectory towards revolution, right? And reaching beyond established forms and really the call to action. And as long as we feel into the fact that everything has a spiritual meaning, even in the most disruptive situations, we can really ease the tension of the nodal axis that has us on one hand at the end, at the tail, standing in this poised, very wise position where we see things that we normally wouldn't see, kind of like a wise owl, right? They can see in the dark. They see what the conscious mind does not see. That's what it represents. That's why there's wisdom there. But the trajectory is towards the revolution, right? Which is not about holding still in a space. It is about acting on something in the mind, right? Taking initiative to act on something. And the moon in a square to each of these positions in this T-square is a moment here where we can acknowledge the value of giving all of it a spiritual meaning. Even in the most commonplace interchanges, right, between people and individual minds and our social constructs. So when we can value things and see things in their transcendent meaning like that, and every single action is spiritual or transcendent in nature, then we see a much bigger picture. We feel a much bigger picture. So by the time we get to Sunday, Sunday, our moon is fully into Pisces at this point and is going to trine our Venus in Scorpio. Here we go, right at noon, actually. Here we go, Venus in Scorpio, and the moon in Pisces, right? This beautiful water trine where, it's a narrow path. It's a narrow path that we're seeking, right? The eye of the needle. We're seeking illumination, and it's a very narrow pathway, right? It's the apex of the pyramid. It is the middle path of Buddhism, right? It is the eye of the needle in Christianity. So, or in, the monotheistic Abrahamic religion. That's what I'm trying to say. And can be expressed probably in every single spiritual context and religious context that you can imagine. They have some imagery that expresses this singular point at the top that represents this narrow path of illumination. This is where the moon will be, in a trine, right? In a water trine. This is a supportive, speaking of a pyramid or a triangle, right? That is what a trine is. It's a 120-degree angle of an equilateral triangle. So it's very supportive and it's harmonious and it requires nothing from us. In order to gather the energy from it and the support and the foundation. So the moon in this trine to Venus, right? Where is Venus at 11 degrees Scorpio? Drowning man being rescued, right? We can rescue ourselves. We can rescue those. When you go back to that quincunx with Neptune and Mercury about like how do we give to those who are thirsty for the spirit, right? Like what is it? And it's very innocent, and it's like, well, you have to follow, then you have Neptune, which is the Poseidon, right? Is dissolving everything down into the vast ocean of potential here, bringing the inspiration down from the highest point in that moment. And like, how do we do it? Well, it's right here, right? It is our connection to each other and the depth of our feeling for each other and the power of our relationship to each other that kind of motivates us to want to rescue somebody who's drowning, right? And where are we drowning? Well, we're drowning in the ocean of consciousness and all of the potential there that Pisces represents, and we have to find the narrow path. We have to. And so this is a beautiful moment that allows that to really happen. And then from there, the moon will come into a sextile with Uranus. There is that sextile where we find that 60-degree angle where we are able to invest our energies. And, you know, it's an interesting Sabian symbol for 15 degrees, because we always round up, right? 15 degrees of Pisces is an officer instructing his troops before a simulated assault under a barrage of live shells. Well, guess where the live shells are coming from? Uranus retrograde in Taurus. Those are live shells. Those are real things that are totally turning us upside down in our lives. Material crisis, illness, injury, total disruption in our security around us. That is where Uranus retrograde is and has been for a while. And now it's all internalized and individualized because it's retrograde. So the moon, it's like, can we find that place within us that is standing out in front and being that leader, right? A lot of generals and admirals, they're born under Pisces suns, right? Because ultimately, when you have that level of leadership for a collective, you aren't really meant to just establish a boundary between you and the collective. Everything you do is submerged into the entire collective social order, which is Pisces, right? It's everything. And so if we can embody in some ways, if we can find that officer within us, right, that is instructing that part of us that's getting barraged by live shells and giving us the insight, giving us the inspiration. That's a very Pisces thing. Giving us the, but through our intuition, through our dreams. Oh my gosh, definitely pay attention to your dreams by Sunday. You're going to get so much information and inspiration and archetypal references here, especially around this. And if we can find that, we can apply this and really be able to, it's going to show us what we're going to be up against later, right? Especially when Venus is in opposition to Uranus later in the week. And then the moon is actually going to come into a conjunction with Neptune by the time we come to the day of the full moon, which is right here. Okay, so the moon is already past Neptune. So if you go back a couple hours, you're going to see that that's overnight or very early in the morning or late morning. It just depends on where you are. As it gets closer to Neptune, you're going to, I mean, it's going to be powerful. Inspiration, bringing that mandate down from the mountain, right? And applying it to your life, right? It's going to be a lot of inspiration, a lot of direct inspiration, a direct experience in a transcendent way when the moon meets Neptune like this on the day of the full moon. Excuse me. Let me take a sip of water here. All right, thank you. Wow, that made my eyes water. That was intense. Okay, guys. So here's the day of our full moon in Pisces, and we're going to go through the transits of this day. And of course, Monday, we will be together for the transmission, the daily medicine transmission. So of course, there will be information coming through about all of these things from an intuitive and certainly based off of how the weekend went, right? Because I am just picking up on the intuitive energy in the moment all the time. So it's always shifting and changing as well, right? The resonance is always changing based on everybody's individual choice. And that's important to realize too, that it's not static in terms of how it resonates. So let's look at this here. The moon meets Neptune and then comes into a quincunx with Mercury. Mercury in conjunction with fixed star Spica in the head of the grain of the Virgin, right? The maiden, Spica. Spica star seeds. Oh, they're so lovely and they're very rare. And boy, they are here to just nourish and to give and to provide in a very beautiful way. And so to have Mercury in this position here, I know it's in a quincunx with, it's going to be in a quincunx to the moon in Pisces. But again, how do we provide? How do we provide for ourselves? What kind of spiritual, new spiritual ability is going to make itself known to us that will give us and nourish us and sustain us? It's a gift. It's giving. There's something beautiful that is coming from nature and from our ability to harness it that is going to come forward. So Spica star seeds, boy, oh boy, what a beautiful opportunity to step forward in your speech and your communication and your ideas right now. And but the quincunx here, again, it's going to we still have to live with our limitations. And this is what this degree of Pisces represents, that we all have our dharma to fulfill. And we have to be realistic about what our limitations are as well as what our dharma is, so that we can actually live in a collective situation that's successful, right? It's like Gilligan's Island, right? Everybody's there and everybody has their role to play, and you can't play every role. You have to actually fulfill your role and your dharma. And we're each going to have a very inspired and direct and beautiful connection to this, but it's going to force us to adjust ourselves mentally to the mental idea coming in of some new spiritual. It's like the tripod, right? It's like a butterfly growing a third wing, right? It's a tripod. It's something that will stabilize us mentally, but at the same time, we can't do it all. And that is what the moon in Pisces is going to show us and inspire us, that we each have our dharma. We're going to feel very much into what that is so that we can successfully move forward from this place. And the quincunx is going, that green line, that inconjunct is going to allow us to utilize what that extra ability that's coming forward from Spica, right, that is providing and sustaining and nourishing us and giving something to us, right? It's going to, we can apply that and adjust ourselves with that, and that's going to be an incredible magical moment, right? Even though it's an inconjunct and it feels like those things aren't going to fit together, when we find how to transmute that is some magic right there, big time. And Venus is going to quincunx Chiron at the same time. Look at that. And again, this is where things don't seem to fit, and we have to find a way to adjust it. And this is what alchemical transmutation really represents, because it's the squaring of the circle, the Vitruvian man. And, Venus at this point is really grappling with the reality that there are hierarchies in our relationships, and they're very institutionalized, and there are representatives of the elite that are going to represent what our power structure really is. And Venus is not going to, this is a very weird, but again, the adjustment here will come from our ability to harness the Chiron wound in a way that we heal, as opposed to us trying to fix this problem. And that quincunx right there, again, is going to be an opportunity for us to transmute this energy rather than to fall prey to one side or the other in that moment. Because Venus, for the sake of being comfortable and to be secure and to have her desires met, she may just like fall in line with that. Oh yeah, okay, these are the elites, and these are the royals, and these are the celebrities, and I see how we're all kind of, it's all represented, how we're all fitting together, right? And it's very easy for Venus to put on that really beautiful ball gown and go there, right? Because that's what's comfortable and it kind of satisfies her. But when she feels into the deeper structures of what that hierarchy really means, boy, oh boy, that can really pull out some Chiron wounding. So again, another alchemical moment here with that quincunx, that inconjunct, right? Moon is going to sextile Pluto. Here we go, Pluto again. This time, though, boy, this is incredible. This degree is about the catharsis of, the power of the soul to intervene in order to purify corrupt practices within our soul, right? It is very much about catharsis, and like I said, the intervention at a soul level in order to purify and get rid of those corrupt practices that have made their way into our experience, right? Into our feeling experience. So again, see that for what it is, right? Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, just pulling away the threads of our material and cultural and traditional reality that we have, really relied upon for so long, is now being pulled away, and we can invest this, right? Allow the catharsis, allow the intervention on a soul level to come through you, and then apply that to what is happening on a institutional level, and you will see that it'll be be very powerful. Sorry, that was such a distraction. And there we go. I can't believe I haven't got more of those. Okay, moon sextile. This is on the day of the full moon, just to keep you. Yes, I would like some more water, actually. Thank you. That would be wonderful. Man, I have a great partner, don't I? Let's see. So we're getting really close to the full moon now. The sextile to Pluto. Mercury is going to be in a trine, you can see here, with Jupiter, again with Spica. So we just talked about Spica. So again, where's Jupiter about overcoming our passions to teach from a deep place of deep wisdom? Now this is where we can use that extra spiritual capacity that Spica is offering to us in this moment, through our communication, through our mind, through our conceptualization of the world around us. This is where we can teach from a place of deep wisdom, something that's coming forward through our mental sphere that we don't even really know yet, but is being offered to us, given to us to sustain us. This can find some traction with where Jupiter is in order to teach from a place of deep wisdom. Wow. And then we have our full moon right after that. And this is the prism, right? This is the prism. Thank you. The prism that is the prism that is the imagery for this, because that is the degree of the full moon in Pisces, is the differentiation that is inevitable at the end of a cycle, right? Just because the things differentiate doesn't mean that it doesn't come from the same source, but it's the sacred imperative of life in order to do so, right? The light goes through the prism refracts and the light, and it separates it into all of its individual constituent wavelengths. And that doesn't mean it's any less light. It just means that we all eventually come back into our own seed point. So this full moon, as this is a huge culmination of a massive cycle here, because we're about to change over, each of us emotionally, into a new seed point from here. Now, the degree of the sun is really important, and I cannot overstate this enough. We have to remember that if we don't, there will be a crisis moment here where we, where the corrupted practices are being torn away, right? Where we actually are successful in tearing it away. But if we don't come at this from the truth, right? From that one singular ray of light when it goes through the prism, we risk just re-embodying the same old bullshit, okay? I can't spell it out any clearer. So we have to be, and this is how we get pulled back into it, right? We have to be aware of this, and how sophisticated and how practiced and how powerful this hacking of our shadow really is to pull us right back into the same dynamic. And we do not want to set new seeds. We do not want to culminate with this full moon with going back into the same old shit. Okay, it's really important that we realize that, because we will receive back what we put into it. I assure you that this new moon, this whole lunar cycle, will give us that if we do not take this to heart okay? And be very aware. Do not participate in the divisiveness that they continue to try to bring out with every single narrative you can see, right? Do not allow yourself to get caught back into it, because if you do, that is what you are going to bring about for yourself by the end of this cycle. And when that next new moon comes, you will not be able to be the hub in a wheel as Pluto stations direct. You will absolutely bring back on yourself the same shit that you are sowing at this point of the full moon. I cannot overstate this. And hold on one second, guys. Now, the big theme coming through the week as we go, and this is here's our full moon, right? And then we come into the 21st, where we're going to see that Mars is in a trine to the North Node. We're going to see our equinox here on the 22nd, right, where the sun comes into Libra, right, officially the balance point of light and dark for both hemispheres of the planet. We're going to see that Mercury is now in a conjunction with Arcturus and is in a square to Pluto, right? Really providing a lot of challenge and friction between the deepest wisdom of the universe to the inevitable destruction as part of that. We really will need to, mentally connect to this place if we want to get through whatever this represents. Venus will come into an opposition with Uranus. Ooh, boy. While on one hand we are sensitive to where we're going, we still have to contend with where we are, and that's going to be brought out very strongly in that moment. And then we move into, I think Friday is the 25th. Oh, that's Saturday. But I want to share it with you anyway, because what we're going to find again is that Mars comes into a trine with Saturn. And Mars, in both of its major aspects in this coming week, it's going, like I said, it'll be in a trine to Rahu, and it'll be in a trine to Saturn. Both of these degrees in Libra have to do with a fire at the center, right? A fire at the center. And it's important to realize that we need to, and Mars is the agent of fire, right? It is the agent of the tower. It is the spark of life. It is cardinal fire. And so Mars is familiar with this territory, is able to harness this spark. And if we hold that and let it build a fire at the center of you, in the center of your soul, right? The fire that sustains you spiritually, because in its connection to both of these aspects, it's going to be really important that we keep that fire going, that Mars puts its energy on keeping that fire going, because in trying to both of these positions, it's necessary, right? It's necessary in our application of our knowledge of what it means to spark a fire and keep it maintained. We're going to want this when it comes to where we're going on a soul level, and certainly what Saturn is representing, which is the mental archetypes of who we could be, right? And we don't want to get pulled into somebody else's conception of what that is. And it's very easy for that to happen right now. And in fact, it's the only thing they have left, is to continue to manipulate the power in that scorpionic way. So I know that's a lot of information, and it's always like this, no matter what. But this is a really important time right now, and I'm really glad to be able to give you this information. So, just pay attention to what's going on over the weekend. Do not let yourself get pulled into the emotional fray of it. Draco starseeds especially, this is why you're here. You're here to hold that resonance for those Draco who are here to protect us and to protect that secret, and to not let it be exploited by those who have lost their way. So if you're interested in a reading or energetic support for this process, let me know. I'm going to offer the flash sale again starting on the full moon. I'm going to bundle it with a Reiki distance treatment as well, because it's so necessary right now. The energy work is supreme importance. I can't tell you how important it actually has been with me and with the people I'm working with. The energy work is just as important as understanding the cycles in your chart. So I'm going to bundle them together in a really good deal, and I'll put out a flyer for that soon. So keep an eye out for that on social media, but you can always book any other service or package through my website. It's all in the description box below. And guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. We will do the daily medicine for the full moon. Please reach out if you need anything. Participate in the chat on Telegram if you are looking for support or any kind of encouragement, or just to be like, is anybody else going through these things? And I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this. Thank you for being here right now and being exactly who you are, because it is exactly right. And we will come back together on Monday. So I love you guys. Thank you. I'll see you later.